to GCSE Maths. So this week with Cam. So today we're learning all about Pythagoras. So Pythagoras isn't just a formula, it is named after the person who came up with the formula. So Pythagoras was born about 2,500 years ago in a place called Samos. Back in those days, if you studied maths, you also studied philosophy, and he was the best at philosophy and maths. His maths was so good that we are still studying it 2,500 years later. And as well as coming up with lots of new interesting maths ideas, he also started his own religion as well. So he was very influential in society at that time. So in today's lesson, we'll be learning all about the theorem that he is most accredited for, aka the Pythagoras Theorem. So let's get started. Something that's very interconnected with today's topic is the topic of square numbers. And it's so important that we know what square numbers are and how to calculate them. Right, your first question then, which of these are not equal to 4 squared? Is it 16, 4 times 2, 4 times 4, 4 add 4, add 4, add 4? Press pause, give yourselves 30 seconds and then we'll go through the answer. Fantastic, well done. So what is a square number? So a square number is the outcome of a number multiplied by itself. So the first square number is 1. The second square number is 4. The third square number is 9. The fourth square number is 16. So in blue here is a list of the first 7 square numbers. Going back to the question, which of these are not equal to 4 squared? And the answer that we're looking for, 4 times 2. So if you work out either A, C or D, it will always give you the same answer. So 4 times 4 is the same as 4 squared, 16, and 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 is also equal to 4 squared, 16. Whereas 4 times 2 is not equal to 16. So therefore, the wrong answer was 4 times 2, which is not equal to 4 squared. Right, brilliant. So your next question is, which of these are not square numbers? So there are 6 numbers here. Which of these are not square numbers? A, B, C or D? Press pause, give yourselves 30 seconds and then we'll go for the answer. Okay, so let's start off by ticking the numbers that are square numbers. So 100 is square, 10 times 10. 4 times 4 is 16. That's a square number. 10 is not a square number. 2 is also not a square number. 144 is a square number. 12 times 12. And 196 is also a square number. 14 times 14. So, the 2 numbers that are not square are 2 and 10. So therefore the answer, which of these is not a square number, is B. Okay, next question. So which of these statements shows the correct relationship between the 3 sides on a right angle triangle? We could call the 3 sides A, B and C, where the longest side is represented by the letter C. So is your answer A, B, C or D? Press pause, give yourselves 30 seconds and we'll go for the answer. Okay, well done. So Pythagoras' theorem states if you were to work out the area of a square has the same length as the shorter 2 lengths of the triangle, i.e. these 2 squares, they would be the same total area as a square with side length of the biggest side of the right angle triangle. Or another way to say it is the sum of the 2 squares which have the same side as the smaller sides on the triangle is equal to the total area of the largest square which has length of the same side as the longer side of the triangle. Okay, so my maths teacher used to say mathematicians are quite lazy. So instead of saying all of that spiel, he came up with a formula which was a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a, b, and c were the lengths of the triangle, a and b representing the two smaller sides and c representing the larger side of the triangle. So that formula of Pythagoras, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, can also be rearranged. So when I rearrange formulae, I take my terms over to the other side, and every time I take them over to the other side, I change their sign. So if something's positive on one side and I take it over to the other side, it then becomes negative. So in this formula here, if I take the c squared over to the left-hand side, it will become negative. And if I take c squared over to the left-hand side of the equals, it becomes minus c squared, which gives me a squared plus b squared take away c squared is equal to 0, because there is nothing left on the right-hand side now. And that is the exact same as b squared plus a squared minus c squared equals 0, due to the fact that when you are adding two numbers together, it doesn't matter which order you add them in. So the right answer here was B. B squared plus c squared minus c squared is equal to 0. Well done. So let's try and use the Pythagoras Theorem now to work out some questions. So in this question, we want to work out the size of the largest side, which we can denote with the letter X. So working out your answer, is your answer equal to A, B, C, or D? Press pause, give yourselves 30 seconds, and then we'll go through the answer. So before I start any question to do with Pythagoras, I always want to make sure it is a right angle triangle that I'm working with. And because there's a little square there in the corner, it shows that it is a right angle triangle, so I can use Pythagoras here. And my next step would be to label the sides. And A and B are always the shorter sides on the right angle triangle, so it doesn't really matter which way around you put them. And C is the largest side on the triangle. And if you recall, the formula or the theorem that Pythagoras created was a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So my next step would be to put in the values. So A is equal to 1, B is equal to 10, and the longest side, the one that we're trying to work out, is equal to x. So at this stage, we use our knowledge of what square numbers are. Okay, so a square number is a number multiplied by itself. So 1 squared is 1. And 1 and 100 is equal to x squared, which is 101. So the final step now is to work out what x is. So if 101 is equal to x squared, which means a number multiplied by itself is equal to 101, I can work out what that number is by working out the square root of 101. Now I can leave my answer as that, square root of 101 equals x, or I can use a calculator to work out the exact answer if the question states so. But the most accurate answer would be the square root of 101. Right, well done. So which of these is true now? For this triangle, what is the value of x? So now we've given the shorter side and we need to work out the other shorter side. Okay, so use Pythagoras Theorem. Press pause, give yourselves 30 seconds, and then we'll go through the answer. Brilliant, well done. So the first step here would be to label the triangle again. So A and B are the shorter sides, and C is always the longer side of the triangle. The next step is to substitute those values of the lengths into the formula a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, so if I substitute those values for a, b and c into the formula, I end up with 9 squared plus x squared is equal to 15 squared. I would like to work out what x is, so I'm going to rearrange and take the 9 squared over to the right hand side. Change side, change sign, so when I take it over, it's going to become a negative, which gives me x squared is equal to 15 squared minus 9 squared. So let's go ahead and calculate what 15 squared and 9 take away 9 squared is. So 15 squared is 225, 9 squared is 81. Right, that gives me 144. So x squared is equal to 144. So if x squared equals 144, that means I need to find a number that I can multiply by itself to give me an answer of 144. 12 times 12 is 144. So therefore x is equal to 12, which is the square root of 144. So in this question, the correct answer was A, 144, square rooted, x is equal to 12. Questions now, guys. So press pause, give yourselves about 10 minutes, 5 questions. Could you work out the lengths A, B, C, and D, all in centimeters, and then we'll go for the answers. Fantastic, well done, guys. So the first question, okay, let's go through the question. So your first question, you want to start off by labeling the sides. A and B are for the shorter sides, and C is for the longer side. Write out the formula: a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Substitute the values into the formula. Rearrange the formula to get a squared by itself. Work out the squares. Calculate 49 take away 9.61. Work out the square root of 39.39. And lastly, when you get your answer, don't forget to write the units, which are centimeters. Okay, let's go for question B then, the second question. First of all, label the sides A, B, and C, C being the longer side. Pythagoras Theorem states that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Substitute the values into Pythagoras Theorem and rearrange. So take the 2.7 squared over to the right hand side so that it becomes a negative. Calculate your answer. So if you did subtraction, 20.8. Work out the square root of 20.8, which is equal to 4.56. Don't forget the units, centimeters. Okay, same again for question 3, guys. So label the triangle to start off with. Now this is a bit of a weird triangle because it doesn't look like the triangles that we had previously. This time, the longer side is on the left-hand side. A nice little tip for you is, if you ever want to work out which side is the longest side, it's always a side that's opposite the right angle. Okay, so label it A, B, and C. Write out Pythagoras Theorem. Just as before, we substitute the values of the lengths into the formula. Rearrange the formula so that C, or c squared, is by itself. Work out the value of the squares. Subtract those values to the square root of that value, which will give you your final answer for the length C, which is 11.45 centimeters. Okay, question number 4, guys. So this time we're trying to work out what D is. Again, the longer side, C, is always opposite the right angle. Okay, so start off by labeling your triangle. Write out the formula. Substitute the values, the lengths from the triangle into the formula. Rearrange, so take the 6 squared to the right hand side. Don't forget it will become a negative when it goes over. Work out your values of the squares, subtract those squares, work out the square root of 45, and lastly, don't forget to write centimeters as your units. Last question now. Okay, just as before, we start off by labeling the triangle. Substitute the values for A, B, and C into the formula. Rearrange the formula so that we have e squared by itself on one side. Calculate the values of the squares. Subtract those values. Square root it. And there you have your answer, 6.12 centimeters. Well done. Okay, so let's put our skills to the test now with the example. So there's a ladder of length 4 meters. It leans against a wall that is 2.8 meters high. Foot of the ladder is 1.2 meters from the base of the wall. The length of the ladder above the wall is marked X in the diagram. It's worth 3 marks. Can you calculate the value of X? Okay, press pause. Give yourselves 5 minutes and then we'll go for the answer. Good luck. Fantastic, well done. Now, looking at this question, all the key pieces of information are on the diagram, apart from the fact that the length of the ladder itself is 4 meters. So I'm going to start off by putting that on the diagram. Right, that's helpful because the difference between the whole length of the ladder and the part of the ladder that starts from the base, the floor, to the wall is equal to X, and that's what we're trying to calculate here. So the difference between the whole ladder, 4 meters, and that green part there is X. Now that's important because that little green part of the ladder is part of the triangle, which is made from the floor, the wall, and that part of the ladder. And that triangle is important because it is a right angle triangle. I know 2 lengths, so I can work out the third length using Pythagoras. So let's redraw that triangle and give it a go. So that there is a triangle, exact same triangle for the diagram, redrawn. And the missing side, the longest side, I will call a letter. Because I already have X in the diagram, I'll choose another letter. Let's call it Y. Right, next step, label the diagram A, B, and C. Okay, just like that. And don't forget the largest side is always C, which is opposite the right angle. Okay, so let's work out what Y is equal to. So my first step would be to write out Pythagoras Theorem, substitute the values of A, B, and C into that formula. Right, work out the values of the squares, add those squares together, square root your value, and don't forget that length is centimeters as a unit. Right, I'm just going to add that to the diagram now. So the part of the ladder, which we calculated, is 3.05. And my last step, nice and easy, it's just a subtraction. 4, take away 3.05, which will give me that part of the ladder X. Okay, so 4 take away 3.05 is equal to 0.95 meters, and that's my value for X. As it's worth 3 marks, your 3 marks would be allocated as follows. So 1 mark for using Pythagoras Theorem and showing your workings out correctly. Your second mark would be for an answer of that part of the ladder as being anywhere from 3 meters to 3.05 meters. And lastly, the final mark would be for the correct value of X, anywhere from 0.95 meters to 1 meter. Fantastic, guys. Okay, so we're at the end of the lesson. So time for you to have a go on an assignment. Click on the link below to get to the assignment, which is on Kahoot again this week. Please make sure you try your best. I know you can't do workings out on Kahoot, but get a piece of paper and pen and do your workings out. So the majority of marks, as you've seen in the exam question, are for your workings out. There's no time limit, but make sure it's done before the end of the week, please. Stay safe and have a fantastic week, and I look forward to teaching you next week. Thank you. Come.